Sometimes you come across equations that have parentheses in them, and it causes a little bit of confusion until people get used to knowing what to do to get around that issue. So here's our variable, this n, that we want to isolate all by itself to solve for this equation. And we need to bypass a lot of the parentheses right there. So how can we do that? Well, look at the term that's right beside the parentheses. This is a positive 7. Take that positive 7 and multiply each term inside of the parentheses. So 7 times positive 14n would give us 98n. So really all we're doing is we're multiplying the coefficient of this term by that outside term. 7 times 14 is 98. Since it's got one n, just stick an n right there on the bottom. Now, again, we go back to this outside term, and we're going to multiply it by the other term in here as well. And always take a look at that sign right in front of it. That's a plus 11, so 7 times positive 11 is positive 77. Because I say it's positive, I'm just going to use it as a plus sign. Okay, if it turned out to be negative 77, I would say minus 77. And then I can pull down the rest of the equation. And I quickly do a check to see if there's any like terms to combine. There are no like terms to combine. So we have a random two-step equation that looks a little severe because of the size of the numbers, but if you just follow the steps that you're familiar with, you shouldn't have any issues at all. And here we see that n is simply equal to positive 2. Okay, so that's not too difficult, but let's go through and let's show you some other situations that you'll run into. For example, what about this type of situation where we have a negative number on the outside? Well, that's fine. And what about if we have no coefficient in front of one of the terms? Well, you can always put a 1 in there. In this case, it'd be a positive 1. So negative 11 times 1k would be negative 11k. Then we come back through and we say, well, negative 11 times negative 13. Let's see, negative 11 times negative 13, got my calculator right here, is positive 143. So I say plus 143. And then we pull down everything else. Plus 3 equals, well, let me make that a little neater there, equals 146. Now, at this point, we do have like terms that we can actually combine. The negative 11k is not able to be combined with anything else, so we pull that one straight down. But then when we take a look at plus 143 and plus 3, we can combine those, and that would equal plus 146. Now, we have a nice and neat two-step equation, and we just go and solve from this point. Don't worry about it being equal to 0. Pull out your calculator and find out what 0 divided by negative 11 is, and you see that k is equal to 0. This one might give you a few more scenarios of what to do. Let's go ahead and take this 5 and multiply it by the negative 10r. So that would be negative 50r. Then we're going to take the 5 and multiply it by the negative 12. So that would be negative 60. And then we just pull down everything else because we haven't done anything with it yet. Now, negative 50r does have a like term, and it's the plus 7r, so negative 50r plus 7r is negative 43r. Then we can just pull down, again, everything else that we have not used. There's nothing to combine with the negative 60. And now we have our two-step equation. Just be careful with the steps and you should be just fine. See, negative 318 plus 60 is negative 258. And now we just have to divide by negative 43. And the answer would be positive 6. And let's do one last problem. Pull that up just a little bit more. There we go. What happens if your parentheses is in the right part of the equation? This is another scenario that I want you to be able to handle. Here's the 14n that's in the front. There's nothing to do with it right now because it's just a mess over here with this parentheses. So let's go and get rid of it. Now, keep in mind we should always look in front of the term for its sign. So this is a negative 4. I know it's a minus sign, but we're going to look at it as a negative 4. Negative 4 times positive 13 is, I believe, negative 42. I'm sorry, negative 52. So let's go ahead and pull down the 14n because we're not doing anything with it. Because this equals negative 52, I'm just going to write negative 52. And that's got an n, so we'll just put a n right there. Then we come back and we say negative 4 times negative 11 is positive 44. So I'm going to write plus 44. Got us out of those parentheses. Pull down the equal sign in the 158, and now we just combine like terms and solve. (14n minus 52). 14 minus 52 is negative 38. There's nothing to combine the 44 with. But as you can see, we now have a nice and neat two-step equation. So let's go ahead and subtract 44 from both sides. And we get negative 38n equals 114. That lets us go ahead and do the inverse operation of division in this case. And let's see, 114 divided by negative 38 is negative 3. Now, again, as with all equations, after you've solved it, you can always take your value for your variable and plug it back into the equation and see if it makes it a true statement. And if it is, you know you've got it correct. Some other things that we can look at is that always pay attention to the sign in front of a number that's outside the parentheses. You know, if that's a minus sign, that becomes a negative 4. If that was a plus sign, that would be a positive 4. We still use our same multiplication and division rules with our signs. You know, a negative times positive is a negative, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So make sure you pay attention for that. That causes a lot of issues. Make sure that you do not forget to pull down parts of the equation. That causes issues. But after you distribute, just look and see if there's any types of terms that you can combine. If you can, it'll save you a lot of headaches, a lot of confusion. Remember, if there is no number in front of a variable, just put a 1 in front of it. So negative 11 times 1 was negative 11. Add a k, so pull the k down. Just little things like that will keep you ready to go. And then always, again, remember the property that we're using is when we take that outside number from parentheses and multiply everything inside of it, inside the parentheses by it. It's called the distribution property, and that basically just lets us get rid of those parentheses so that we would go ahead and solve our equation by combining like terms and then following the usual steps.